Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here and really thrilled to introduce to you my friend, Britney Merriam. She is amazing, truly. She currently lives in central Maine and has a beautiful property and gardens with 200 David Austin garden roses and 200 peonies and a beautiful flower shop. And she's an event venue and she raises sheep and she's just an amazing queen. This passion project was birthed out of a very tragic experience that she had, that she shares a little bit about during our time together, and just how the healing process turned into a beautiful garden and event space. And I am thrilled to share this moving conversation and this beautiful soul with you. So please sit back and relax. Enjoy my conversation with Britney Merriam. Sweet Britney, I am so excited to see your beautiful face, and I'm really thrilled for our conversation. How are you this morning?
I'm so thankful for this opportunity. So thank you so much for I'm seeing your face that day at Sandra's event and being like, oh my gosh, we have to do this. And it really means a lot to me, and our community means a lot to me too. So thank you.
Oh, it's my great pleasure. As you know, we're both in New England and spring is just starting, and with it, all the chores of having property. And I would much rather be sitting inside having a beautiful conversation with you than adding sticks and brush to my burn pile. So thank you. And just to let our listeners know, Britney and I met about a year and a half ago at an event that Sandra Sigmund and Sharon Santoni did together, which was launching one of Sharon's books. And oh my gosh, what a fabulous event. And then I got to see you again just recently at Sandra's book launch. So all the stars have aligned. We're technically in the same room, and I'm really excited to hear about you, about what you're doing, and really how you're saying yes to yourself in this season.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Britney Merriam, for those of you who haven't heard of me. And I am the co-creator of the Garden of Thomas in Maine. The idea of the Garden of Thomas and my dream was born after my first son, Thomas, passed away. I was in desperate need of comfort, therapy, a happy place. So I decided to create my own. And I didn't realize my true love for flowers until after Thomas had passed. I went to my local florist and I selected my own cut flowers to create and piece together a bouquet to place beside his urn. And having that bouquet by my bedside, it just gave me, it's just like having the support and warmth and comfort. It's like, oh my gosh, I became obsessed with having them around, and they were all over the house. And I found myself back at that florist every week, collecting and bringing back my own flowers. And my husband was quietly observing this new obsession and proposed the idea of growing our own flowers.
Right. They're such problem solvers, aren't they?
So the Garden of Thomas's purpose was to be a sanctuary where we could grow and collect our flowers. Today, it is all of those things and also a flower shop and a private event venue. And the obsession too of that I have with flowers is also the same for the south of France. In front of our home you'll find this courtyard and gardens, which is very, it's typical of the farmhouses in Provence. And within that courtyard is a large fountain, hand hewn from the French limestone quarries, and that I imported from France.
Oh, word.
Yes. And within that courtyard as well is the grand view of the east side of Pleasant Mountain. Just like being located in central Maine, we have the views of many distant valleys and mountains, it's very stunning, and it certainly adds to the magic and tranquility of our home. So when we host an event, guests have the pleasure of sitting within that courtyard with those breathtaking views, accompanied by the trickling sounds of the fountain and the scent of our many, many garden roses. We currently have on the property just under 200 David Austin garden roses and
oh my goodness,
200 peonies as well. Half of them are heirloom peonies.
Wow.
And we have an adorable herd of sheep, just all portraying the charm and romance of the south of France.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much, Brittany. And I'm interested to know, like, how does one go from visiting their local florist every week while grieving to following their dream?
It is quite the process. It's a lot to process. I guess the only way to say it is, having to realize that you have to make a start. You'll never be ready to do anything, any type of a dream or anything you have, because you're not going to be ready today or tomorrow or next week or even next month. So it's never going to happen. So you just have to do it. You just have to make a start. And I think that that's also important too, because throughout this journey of creating my dream, there are a lot of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to also have, my own little French bakery here and, like bake madeleines and croissants like every morning. And I had like so many ideas, and I didn't, I just thought, let's just put all of my time and money and effort into building that, and without even testing the waters to make sure. And I ended up partnering with the Italian bakery in Lewiston, and he was like, yeah, you're crazy. He's like, I'm at this bakery at 3 a.m. every morning. Like, you wouldn't have been able to do that. And so it's like also a matter of like, don't let your to-do list or like my dream list on your computer or whatever, don't let that be like a graveyard. Like, pick at everything that you're interested in and and then your journey, the path it'll come to you, and it'll help you figure out what it is you want to do. But it's also the healing too is a big part of it.
Right. And I want to hear more about that story if you are willing and interested in sharing. But I do want to say one thing. The Italian baker telling you you're crazy is just one guy's opinion. I believe that if these dreams are in us, they're for us. And we are multi-passionate. We have so many great ideas because we desire to create beautiful spaces that are in service to other people. Yeah. And even though, and I am telling myself, even though there are 32 things on my list that I want to do right now, they all occur at the Phineas Wright House. So that is how I know that it can happen. Now, am I going to be the only person that manages all 32 of those things? No, ma'am. No, I'm not. And because these ideas are in me and these dreams are in me, it would be ridiculous for me to assume that God, who I believe put them there, is not also providing all of the support and all of the resources. This is how you know I'm not lying. And everything that I need for this dream to become a reality, because it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And when we meditate and visualize and imagine these beautiful places, it's because they already exist.
Yeah.
And it will happen. And the Italian baker can call me crazy all day long, and he can start calling me crazy at 3 a.m. when he's in his bakery. And my French croissant baker will be thinking I'm an amazing queen. So I am actually not happy to bakery, but now that you said it, sounds like a great idea, which is sometimes how those things happen. But it is so easy for us to have these dreams while we're operating in our genius. And then when we get to the next phase, which is sometimes the how, that it can shut down all of that stuff. And a concept, a truth, a universal truth, a spiritual truth that I've held on to through this process is that the how is not my responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I encourage you and all your 32 things and wherever they take place and how many different locations you have. And when you do purchase that beautiful property in the south of France, that you don't have to recreate the south of France because you're in the south of France, then I celebrate that as well.
Oh, that's a dream. That is the ultimate dream. Oh my God.
Right?
And you're so right. Yes, thank you.
Welcome. It's what's most personal is most universal. And sometimes we just need someone who says, oh my gosh, yes, you should totally do that. That's an amazing idea. Instead of, how are you going to make that happen? That's crazy. You have to be here at 3 a.m.
Thank you.
My pleasure. So tell me what you were going to tell me just about your healing story and how I know the bio story, the quick, that was a really succinct 2-minute explanation of what you're up to, but there are hours and years that went into that, and I'd love to hear how do you recover from that? How do you heal from that? How do you say yes to yourself in a season that is just like devastating, awful?
Yeah. And I love to share that in hopes to help other people who are, going through the same things. So the healing process, it's a process that I'm actually still learning even after 9 years. But the advice that I wish that I had in the very beginning would be, if I could tell myself, it would be to embrace every feeling, explore it, as painful as it is, and to study it. Because whenever I was feeling depressed or confused, I would just treat it like every other feeling that I had experienced in my past. And I would try to brush it off. I would try to ignore it and continue to push through the day. So what I didn't know was that you cannot do that. Because if you do, those feelings, they will overcome you and they will win. I was fighting these feelings, having inner wars within myself daily, trying so hard to understand why this even happened. But I didn't understand. What I didn't understand is that these feelings are new and should be treated as such. And with that being said, I am also new and should be treated as such by myself and others. So taking every small, and I mean small, step very slowly, and to give myself patience and grace. So it's a journey of learning my new way of life and who I am back from the beginning, really.
That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
I love that. I love that concept of reminding yourself that you're new and then treating yourself like you're new. We have so much grace for new people. We have so much grace for babies learning to walk. We have so much grace for kids learning to read. And we have so little grace for ourselves in a new chapter, in a transition.
Yeah. Yes. I hope that helps other people too. It was years of trying to figure that out.
Thank you for that.
Life has its trials, and which may hurt us, but what hurts you makes you stronger. And these trials, they can form us into better versions of ourselves, and teach us very important lessons. Though life may be hard, and there are always signs along the way, and to point you in the right direction of where you are meant to be. And it's very important to listen to those signs. And I believe where I am is how I can make the world a better place, for the world and for myself. And I'll continue to spread my magic throughout the world. And I just, throughout this journey, I have been blessed with being surrounded by the tremendously beautiful and supportive community of like-minded women, who I am so thankful to call my friends, and you. And so Jamie Beck, oh my gosh, we all love her so much. Jamie Beck, quoting her, describing her own journey, once said, "This process taught me a larger lesson about the pace of my life and work. It all comes down to taking each step carefully with patience, allowing the path to reveal itself." And that right there is like the most pertinent quote that explains my personal healing process and everything that I'm currently going through.
Thank you for sharing that. How do you feel like the path is presenting itself now? In what ways?
The community, for one, is definitely, it's more focused on that. It's about, women supporting women, and being here for each other and lighting each other, keeping our inner flame alive, and not, surrounding ourselves by candle blower outers.
Exactly. I so resonate with that. Sometimes the phrase women supporting women can be followed by an eye roll. It can be followed by, like, is it just a group of people complaining about their husbands or their kids or their jobs? And it's no, it's actually ridiculously powerful, because in supporting another woman, we recognize and are reminded of how powerful they are and how powerful we are. I heard a phrase last year, that it was divine feminine rising. And when I read that, I thought, ooh, that's as scary as it sounds. Like, things happen. Like, the power that your mother had in your own household, and the power that you have in your household, and the lioness, the mama bear, any of those characteristics and creatures in nature and in our own experience are fierce and formidable on their own. And as a collective, it's just unstoppable. And it's not with the goal of destruction of any other entity or force. It's just a standing. And it's a sisterhood, and it's community and strength building. And
I agree. This community is it's just so amazing. And it's just like understanding, that we're all living our own versions of hardship and being there for each other, protecting each other's inner flame. And all of that is just like, it's a necessity, and it's a beautiful thing. And we're all very fortunate to have that in our lives.
Isolation is the enemy. It gives us the opportunity to take on a narrative that actually is not our own. So you have a property, and your property, I think, is much larger than mine. I don't have 200 rose bushes and goodness sakes, I'm actually grateful for that. Now that I'm in charge of all the things that Keith has planted over the years. It's a lot. It's a lot. So how are you balancing doing the things you love and the things that you need to do so that the things you love grow? And just how are you doing that? How are you filling your days?
It's kind of funny because, when you have these dreams and you're like, fields of, that was another thing I wanted was like a field of lavender, just like a big, and it was like, plant it, below the courtyard, because that's where, with the wind coming from the mountains, it would blow like the scent of the lavender into
beautiful.
Yeah. So it's like, oh my gosh, it all makes sense in our heads and it's so beautiful, the vision. But when you get to do it and then you do it and then you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
And I'm glad to know that your climate can accommodate lavender.
Oh yes. Lavender is very, very hardy.
I'm coming from California. We had lavender at our home there. And I just assume that it's too cold here for some, since I can't have figs and I can't have citrus, I figured I could have lavender. Oh, that's brilliant. So good. So, and you have a flower shop.
Yes. And the purpose of the flower shop was to be, because, now we have all of these rose bushes and peonies. So something to sell, the flowers out of. And, but yeah, just having so many, peonies, it's like, it's a dream, and when they're all in bloom and oh my gosh, but at the same time, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm only one person and my husband too. So it's like, okay, we're only two people. It's like, we literally need to hire a crew now of landscapers to come here. But yeah, so gotta be careful, I guess, with how big your vision is. Just start small, then add to it.
Yes. I know that's so tricky. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know that it's more work than one person, but you also need the finances to hire the person. But I just feel like it can be chicken and egg, because like I can't afford to hire somebody, but if I don't hire someone, I'm not going to be able to harvest all these flowers, so I'm not going to make any money. And it can get into kind of a loop. How are you managing that?
I get by doing it, most of it ourselves, that can be really tiring. I think, our gardens would most definitely flourish and be grander and bigger if we had someone tending to it 24/7, like my David Austin garden roses. The rose field right now is currently a viewing garden, which is wonderful too, but they're not 4 feet tall like they should be. They're more like 2 or 3, and they're not like climbing as vigorously as they should, but they're still, it's so also still beautiful. And
I appreciate the trial and error. I we have some David Austin roses, but my labor of love and passion is dahlias. And I grew dahlias in California, which was fantastic because you get to leave them in the ground. And here you have to take them out. And I love them. They make me so happy, and they're so much work. And I feel like it is still something that I'm doing. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers because every spring is a new discovery to see if you are actually growing dahlias, because the winter storage is elusive, I'll say. So for our listeners, if anyone is not familiar with dahlias or how to grow them in a place that's cold, they are a tuber, and you plant one tuber, looks like a really skinny sweet potato, and it grows beautiful flowers. And then in the fall, after the first frost, then you dig them out, and that one tuber can have grown to as many as 20 tubers. But you then have to either divide in the fall by searching for what's called an eye, which is where a new plant will grow from. So each tuber doesn't necessarily mean a plant. So I have divided in the fall, I've divided in the spring, I've wintered, you have to store them for winter. I've used peat moss. I've used vermiculite. I've used damp newspaper. I've used a mix of all of those things and stored them in my basement. Too warm because of the furnace. I've stored them in the barn. Too cold. I've stored them in, my friend was a flower farmer. I stored them in her cooler. That was also not ideal. I believe I have finally found a good place, which is this back room of my garage. And I put a glass of water outside the door to that room. So I know if the water freezes in that room outside, that I'm, just minutes away from losing my harvest. So I can warm that back room a little bit, but it's such a crapshoot every year. And this year I have decided I was going to divide in the spring. So that's my task the next couple of weeks, is to get them out of their winter storage. And a dahlia expert who lives in my town, she digs them out of the ground and puts them straight into a garbage bag and labels them and stores them for winter. She doesn't brush the dirt off. If there's earthworms in there, she just lets them be, and that the dirt insulates them. So that's why I crossed my fingers, because I've never done that before, but I will be investigating them. I have to do the burn pile and then the dahlias. Those are my two big tasks for the month, is to see if I am in fact a dahlia farmer this year or not.
A lot of trial and error.
Yes, every year. And then people are asking me what types of dahlias. At this point, it's like, I have no idea. I just, by the time you dig them out and then store them and then separate them and then pot them to see if they're going to grow and then get them back in there. I've touched them so many times. I don't even know what they are anymore, but they are beautiful. And I'm super happy to have them.
It is work. Oh my gosh, to have pretty things, the things we do to have what we love.
So I stored 200. So I'll be planting at least 400 if everything survived, and I only split it. I only do one split, but I could have 1,000 if everything went super, super well. But
yes. So you're the dahlia version of me.
We'll see. I'll keep you posted. So what is next for you? What's on your list? What's coming up?
We're currently planning a Mother's Day event. I love it. I love planning the events. It's always exciting and fun. We partnered with a food truck in Maine. They're called Crepe Elizabeth, and they do crepes, savory, sweet, like every type of crepe that you can think of, and they're so good. And so they come here every time we do an event. They're the sweetest husband and wife team, and they love it here. So it's always a pleasure having them. But every time we do an event like that, it's a social event. More people come in the flower shop, look at the flowers, they take a bouquet, go have a crepe and sit in the courtyard with the fountain and the views, and we have live music playing. So it's my version of a happy place.
That sounds so beautiful. So please tell people how they can register for that event and how they can follow along with all of your beautiful, amazing, magical things.
Yes, thank you. So we are posting soon the details. We always go through Eventbrite. It's a ticketed event. So if they follow the Garden of Thomas Instagram, it's at the Garden of Thomas, and my Instagram as well, which is at Britney Merriam.
That's with one T, friends.
We'll be sharing all of the details on how to get your tickets.
That's beautiful. And we'll link everything in the show notes. Thank you so much, Britney. I can't wait to come visit. I can't wait to play. Let's talk more about the things we can do together. I look forward to that. And have a beautiful, beautiful spring.
You too. Thank you so much again for the gift of this interview and being able to share my story. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure. I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wright House and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.